Well, good afternoon and welcome after a very long hiatus back to the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Dan Edwards, with Keller Williams in Bothell, and my co-host, Tucker Maxwell's here. Welcome to the show, Tucker.
Hey, thanks a lot, Dan. How you been?
I have been great. It has been a little hot minute since we've done this podcast, and there's been a lot going on. So first and foremost, I want to just know, how have you been? What have you been up to? I want to say that we're kind of on a drought when when I look out and I don't see rain I can't remember the last time. Like, are we officially in a drought season in the Northwest?
I think so, Dan. I definitely have not been this tan this time of year, I think, in a long time. We shouldn't jinx it, though. The sunshine's been great.
Yeah, I'm not going to jinx it. I hope not to do that. But I will say it has been nice. And yes, have you been golfing? Is that why you're so tan?
I've been golfing. We've already been out on the paddle boards already this year. You know, it definitely seems summer arrived earlier.
I love that. Yeah, no better place to be than the Northwest in the summertime. And we are June. And I know that when it goes back, you think June is going to be the beginning of summer, but it's not. It's always horrible. So I am jinxing us because I do know that the weather is showing that we are getting some rain this weekend. But whatever. I have a golf trip planned for the last week in June, and we're going to be in Central Oregon or Washington. Central Washington. So Chelan area should be just fine over there.
Yeah, should be fine.
Yeah. Well, hey, we got a lot to cover. And, I basically just kind of want to start out by checking in with the general sense of applications for the market, because from a real estate standpoint, I'm going to talk about some of the inventory numbers and stuff like that we're seeing. But, it all begins with making an application, because really you don't want to do anything until that happens. So what are you guys seeing in the way of applications trending right now?
Yeah, great question. And so this has been a roller coaster so far this year, and it's been hard to really pinpoint the reasoning behind things. But as of late, we have seen a decrease in mortgage applications with nothing specifically. So, not a interest rate hike or the Fed making any crazy mentions of rate increases or anything like that. Just with overall sentiment in the market right now, I just think people are paused to just see, what's going to eventually happen with tariffs. Also now with the protests going on, what is that going to bring? But we've definitely seen a slowdown that we don't typically see at this stage in the summer market.
So that slowdown, it's actually, I've got a video here that I need to show. I was at a Northwest MLS Summit yesterday, and you didn't get a chance to get there but I have. How can I do this? I want to video file. See if this works. I don't know if it will. This is like on the fly stuff, but to get agents' opinion of what the market is.
Yeah.
I should have queued this up better. Maybe I'll just show it on my screen, and that will be. Oh, wait, it started. No, it's not it. Cancel that. So this is a group of professional real estate agents that have been in the business and decided to attend this symposium. And I don't know if you can see this video very well, but the question is what word describes the current real estate market?
Yeah.
And look at the slow's in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. But look at all these different things that are popping up there, like just hundreds of different things. And if I can even read them, it's changing, slow, curvy, pivoting, hard, confusing, hot, exciting, worried, weird, down, uncertain. Those are just a few of the words. So, agents are kind of like guessing at it too. And I think in uncertain times, being a real estate agent that can refocus everybody on what is certain about real estate. Mm-hmm. And there's one thing I know is that they're not making much more of it. All the stuff they're making that's new is really hot and on fire, if you get my drift. Volcanic. So in uncertain times, you got a place to put your head down. In uncertain times, you have to live somewhere. And even certain times, stuff can happen, right? Like it happens to people in life. So, if you're out there and you're considering, what to do with regards to buying, as from a lending standpoint, what would you tell buyers?
I would get in. I mean, the 2 years ago, buyers were begging for a situation we're in today, where they can
Right.
look at a property multiple times. They have the opportunity to do an inspection. They have flexibility on, do they want a discounted price? Do they want sellers to cover their closing costs? Right? They have the time to think through these decisions, which we didn't have 2 years ago.
Yeah, but Tucker, you're getting a lot of pushback with rates being so high. They're just so high.
Yeah. I think it's relative. So it's a similar kind of thing there. When you mentioned those words, you had some realtors say hot and you had some realtors say slow. So you have some buyers that are coming to us and saying, hey, this 6% rate, 6.5% rate, historically is not a bad rate. We're happy to get in with the pricing discount that we are getting, or the seller paying our closing costs. So we're okay with that. While on the other hand, you do have those same people that said, well, weren't rates just 3%? When are they coming down again? So I think it's your perspective on that.
So when are they coming down again to 3%?
I don't think that'll ever happen. I think if they do, the negative the force that causes rates to come down to 3 will probably outweigh the benefits of a 3% rate. So war on U.S. soil, complete collapse of the stock market, super high unemployment. Like, you're going to have to either have lost your retirement or lost your job to get a 3% rate. So would you give
Right.
up the income for a lower rate? I don't know.
Right. Well, and one of the things I think, like as we were going through the inflation that happened over the last couple of years, I think a lot of people were thinking, well, when is it going to go back to that previous price? And the problem with inflation is you don't want deflation.
Yeah.
Deflation means something bad is happening, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to get deflation. However, what you can get as the economy turns and inflation gets in check. So what was the rate? I mean, we were having like 5, 6, 7% inflation rates. We're
Yep.
now down to 2% ish
Yep.
range, which is kind of the healthy range of inflation because you don't want deflation. So if we're in the right range of inflation, and the next consequence is cost of livings have gone up. Therefore, because of the efficiencies in business, employees should be making more. One of the big things that I'm hearing in the Northwest is AI is going to replace all of our tech workers. That's like a big fear that I've heard really smart people say. What say you?
Yeah, I think that, I'm not in that space, but I think it's definitely disrupting the coders specifically, right? If you can run an AI program to find a bug in a code, like, sure, that's going to solve the problem faster if the AI is there to find the error and to provide the coding correction to make that quick change. You don't need a dev team, working around the clock to handle that. Where I think there's still going to be value is, the limitations to AI, the creative side of it. You're still going to have a need for it. What I think is also potentially impacting the tech buyer is the amount of those tech buyers on visas. You have a lot, especially in the greater Seattle area, we have a lot of buyers buying with H-1B visas, green cards, ITIN numbers or ITIN numbers. And I think a lot of that market is unsure as to, can they buy a home now? With the recent changes, we saw FHA a couple months ago say that you have to be a permanent resident in order to do an FHA loan now. Whereas before that, you could apply with, a work visa and get an FHA loan. So I think to some degree we've spooked the market to say, hey, if you don't have citizenship, you can't buy a home, and which is potentially these tech buyers.
So that's not true.
That's not true. No, that's not true. We can still do an H-1B visa. We can still place them in a loan. Most of them have permanent residency, or at least they're
I was going to say those
working
HB1 visas, how long are they good for?
while you're employed. So as long as
While
you
you're
stay employed with that company, if you switch companies, that's when you'd have to reapply. And that's where I think some of the hesitation has come, is the administration has said those H-1Bs aren't going to be as easy to get anymore. Like, we're going to make these employers prove that they went through some vetting process and that we didn't overlook a US citizen before hiring them, right? But none of that has actually come to fruition. It's just like these rumors.
It's the fear. It's the fear of that being the case rather than it actually being the case.
Exactly, because no, other than the FHA guideline changing, there has been no formal loan guideline changes on a conventional basis.
Okay. So essentially what we're seeing is uncertainty in immigration rules, uncertainty in where the economy is going is
Yep.
all leading to those that could move forward sitting on their hands. And, let me read you some of the statistics of our numbers and why, you look at this being such a great time to buy. Hold on a second. All right. So this is King County numbers. So King County has seen an increase of total active listings of 57, almost 60%.
Yeah.
Pending sales are up 0.9%. So that's nominal. So it's about the same amount of sales last year with twice as much inventory. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's going from total active from 3,800 to 6,120 total active listings in May of 2025. Pending sales pretty much the same. And it's so funny because you go back to last year and people were like, oh, I'm competing again. That was happening last year. Closed sales volume is down 13% in King County. And then the median home price is, it shows it to be $865 down from $890. Don't read into that as being like we're having some major change in reductions in price. It just means median home price, total home prices. Now, let me break down the east side numbers because we see a big difference between all of King County because all of King County covers, South King County and Northwest King County. And those areas have a little bit different price point. Whereas the east side, we have seen an increase. This is amazing. 111% increase in inventory on the east side. So May of 2024, we had 964 homes and total active in May of 2025, 2,034 homes. And then pending sales are down 2.58%. There's that tech crunch because there's a higher quantity of density of tech workers on the east side than some of the others because you've got in the north end, you've got Boeing. In the south end, you have Boeing. So there's some factory style working, middle class working. That's a better way to put working class. And then on the east side, the median home price is 1,370 with sales, closed sales down 15%. So closed sales are down 15%. So you're seeing increase of inventory 2.90. I'm going to say that that's probably the first time since 2019 that we've seen above 2.
Yeah.
We'd have to go back even further to see where it was that high. So months of inventory is almost 3 months. So here's what this means for buyers. And this goes back to our original, how we got to this conversation is buyers have options. So if your interest rate is too high, what are your options, Tucker?
Build it into the structure of your offer. So, with the opportunity to negotiate, can we pull some of that equity that the seller has as a seller credit and buy down your rate? And there's different ways you can do that. You can buy it down on a permanent basis to get it down overall, which means that a buyer today could potentially qualify for a higher priced home with those seller credits than they would without those seller credits. So maybe you buy a little bit more home. The other way you do it is we use those credits in a temporary buy down capacity where we're just not comfortable with the payment. Again, rates are up. We don't love the payment. Well, let's use some of those seller funds set aside and then draw from it for the first 12, 24, 36 months to help soften the blow of this payment that you're concerned about. So we're going to give you 2-3 years to warm up to this payment before the full payment kicks in. And if rates drop at any time, we can refinance. So there is a lot of opportunity with seller credits than without seller credits. And so it just gives us the opportunity now to say, okay, hey, let's do our homework. Let's see what your qualifications look like. And then here's some levers we can pull to get you in the home that you want to buy at a payment you can afford.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is now they truly have choice.
Yep.
They have choice. And then I will say this, just be prepared, buyers that are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. you're going to come across a home that's priced really well, and you're going to have to compete for it.
Yeah.
So even though we're saying, hey, you got all kinds of options, just lean into the advice of your real estate broker as you're looking at making an offer. How, if you kind of know if you're out there looking at 12 to 24 houses when you come across one that is priced really well. So definitely pay attention to that, and don't just hear these statistics that we're talking about and not use them with wisdom. Right? Use them. Don't use them in isolation. So now, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. No, I was just going to say it's a tale of two markets, and that's kind of how I've been leading conversations. Like, we still have to pre-approve you. We have to still prepare for a competitive situation because you might encounter that. But good news is if you don't encounter that, you've just over-prepared. No harm, no foul. What we're afraid of is you have a buyer that's thinking, okay, the market's soft. I won't do the pre-approval process. I won't engage with Dan and do that buyer consultation and get my ducks in a row. I'll wait until the home comes on the market. And then it goes first weekend with multiple offers and they're not ready. So I would say you have to look at the market in two ways, but prepare for the competitive side, escalations, waiving contingencies, and so forth. And if we don't have to deploy that strategy, then great, we win. But at least you are prepared to do so because, like you said, pricing is key. If a home is priced accurately, it is still getting eyes on it. The ones that are sitting, at least from my perspective, and I'll look to you to correct me on this, is oftentimes they're incorrectly priced homes. There's these sellers that want a higher price than what they probably could fetch today. And the realtor basically said, okay, let's see if it works. Let's go out to market, and in 30 days, we'll revisit this price. And so that's why we're seeing price reductions, which doesn't necessarily mean the home value is reduced. We may have just started out of the gate with an unrealistic price, and we're just waiting for it to get to today's price before it will actually sell.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, for our next podcast, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about sellers and what it means for them, because it definitely has shifted, and you've got to price your home right. You need to have it prepared properly and all that stuff. But if you were to just think back over the last 10 years, can you think of a better time or a better opportunity that a buyer has had to buy than right now?
No, I think you'd have to go all the way back to 2013.
Yeah.
We had all the bank foreclosures.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever going to see that again. Again, that was, caused by writing bad loans and us, causing that. And we've put loan guidelines in place to prevent that. Like, literally the best opportunity to buy right now. You can negotiate, you can take your time, you can get inspections. I'm wondering where the buyers are at.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them are sitting on their hands wondering when, because of the uncertainty. I believe there's a Fed decision coming up in June. Is there another potential that they could lower the rate in June?
Yeah, so we've heard that they've taken a cut off the table for June. Again, this is all speculation. We won't know until that meeting. Right now, it looks like there is a potential of a September rate cut, but who knows? I think more eyes are wondering, is Jerome Powell going to still be the chairman of the Fed, or
Right.
is he either A, going to step down, or B, get forced out? Who knows on what's really going on there? But there has been speculation, at least this week, that there's going to be a new Fed chair. And will that lead to more rate cuts? We'll see. I'm not highly optimistic that we're going to get more than one rate cut this year.
Should there be one?
I would like to see one, but I don't really think that the market needs one. To your points, inflation's at 2%, which was the target rate. So that's under control. Unemployment looks to be fairly close to those that want a job, have a job, and those that just choose to be on unemployment, remain on unemployment. Like, that number's not skyrocketing. We're not seeing major layoffs. We are seeing little pockets of it. But the stock market's at near record levels.
Right.
So if you look at the economic indicators that would lead to a rate cut to stimulate the market, they don't need to do that. So I don't think there's anything that's forcing their hand to a rate cut, other than I think they would want to do it because they get looked at in a better light if rates are lower. So other than that, the bad press of when a rate's going to come down, the economy is not in a place where they need to do anything to jolt it. It seems to be operating in a fine manner.
Yeah, it's not like I mean, it feels like that is the only psychological lever that we
Mhm.
have, but there's a lot of other things that happen in the economy that makes it go. Like you said, jobless. So if you were to see the jobless rate increase, or wait, what am I saying? Employment rate, unemployment rate increase, that would be a reason for cutting.
Yeah, because
If
we
the
would
stock
need to.
market is tanking, that would be a reason for cutting.
Yeah, exactly. If we needed to give employers an opportunity to get cheaper money to payroll for payroll, they would bring down rates to get employees back in their jobs at a lower rate. Right now, we're at essentially full employment.
So
I think.
the only thing it would do would be psychologically.
Yep. So here's what's going on behind the scenes that no one's talking about is the government can choose to buy bonds. They don't have to pass it in the Senate or the House. Like they can choose to buy bonds. They stopped buying mortgage-backed securities or bonds in 2022. They just started buying bonds again. Which if we have a guaranteed buyer of bonds that can say we'll buy every bond that's produced or every mortgage-backed security, they can manufacture the rate they want by saying we are sole buyer of these bonds. So then they're not relying on the consumers to evaluate, should I invest in stocks or should I buy bonds, which essentially is a loan to the government at a small rate of return. If the government says we're just going to buy all those at a set price, us lenders can say we're going to bring down rates. We don't have to worry about who's going to buy that investment. We know we have a guaranteed buyer in the government. So they just started buying bonds again, and it kind of went under the radar. But that is a way that the government, without cutting rates, can manufacture lower interest rates
Well, I manufacture lower interest rates in the mortgage industry.
in the mortgage industry. Exactly.
But I would argue that the cost of money between businesses, the lower that goes, the more innovation you have, the more money you got pouring
Totally.
into businesses, the more money you get poured into wages.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so that I would say I agree with you. You know,
Yeah,
unemployment is there and there, but if we really want to increase wages, and because you don't even need to hire more people, just need pay people more
bring them on.
money. They can, because then they can start to afford their living. Because I will say this, and never in a time that I can think of have more people had more than one job in order to
Yeah,
make ends meet. And that's kind of another comment on just society in general. But you know, what's your quality of life if you're having to work two jobs just to survive?
right. Yeah.
And so if you know, if wages come up, there's a lot of places where they're lagging, you know, where wages are lagging.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you know, in an area like the greater Seattle area, people are like, I can't afford a home here because their wages are not
Not
keeping up.
keeping up.
And the last time we saw a significant increase in wages was 2018, 2019, right before the pandemic, right before
Yeah.
the pandemic. And you know, if that rate cut were to happen, I think that that's where you would see the impact is businesses now are a little bit healthier and can pay down debt faster.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's actually a good discussion. So, final thoughts on what you're up to this weekend. It's Father's Day weekend. Are you taking care of your dad?
My dad lives in Boise, Idaho, and I was there last week.
Okay.
So I checked that off the list. You know, pretty chill weekend. We got Mariners in action against the Guardians in Boston this week, and they need to turn around their slide.
Jeez
So
Louise.
we
Yeah.
got the Mariners back in
That's
action.
why I never got on the bandwagon this year because I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. We're not into talk to me in September. Good Lord.
Exactly. And then outside of that, I think maybe some golf and some paddleboarding as long as the sun shines out.
I didn't take you for a paddleboarder. I thought for sure you would be like a motorboat kind of guy.
I'm a paddleboard out to the middle and throw anchor kind of guy.
Just kind of sit
And
down
just
and
sit there.
sip a bevy of your
That's
choice.
right. Exactly.
Do you think it's gonna be warm enough to paddleboard? It seems like it's a little chilly.
I think if you stay out of the water,
If you stay out of the water.
depends on your skill level of paddleboarding.
I just bought my daughter a paddleboard for her birthday, so
Nice.
she's in Bend, so I think it's warm enough down there to do it this weekend.
Yeah, advisor, I wouldn't recommend paddleboarding the river float. The little chutes and ladder, not really built for a paddleboard. So
Oh,
I've crashed. So the
you have.
fins hit the bottom of the
Oh,
little chutes there.
mhm.
So the board will just stop and you'll continue.
You'll go off. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I will let her know not to Well, just that's at the end by the bridge,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, and you can port. You can go around it.
Yeah. Bend, Oregon, great little destination. I'm going down there in July. I got this golf trip here in June, actually, and my son graduated, launched. He has got a job in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.
Nice. So you've
So
done your job.
yeah, I'm done. I got no purpose left.
Well, here you can help home buyers and home sellers. Dan is now free to help you all
I am
hours of
free
the
to
day.
help you guys in all kinds of ways. Yeah. All right. Well, Tucker, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We're going to get this rolling again. We're going to be back here next week. We're going to be talking about sellers. If you, what's your phone number so people can call you in case they need to get a hold of you?
Yep. 425-757-9202.
I think I have a banner for that somewhere. There it is. Boom.
Boom.
425-792. All right. So that concludes the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
See y'all.